and welcome to the Faithful Informed Parenting Podcast, where we have honest conversations around parenting and personal growth with faith application. Today, I have with me one of my best friends. Her name is Nicole Yeboah. Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
She is a mother of four, a singer, a songwriter, and author of Live Life Royally. She has 30 years of experience in language pathology. She has an undergraduate and master's degree in speech pathology from New Mexico State University. She is also a certified clinical licensed speech pathologist with the American Speech and Language Hearing Association. Ms. Nicole was an associate professor at New Mexico State University. And she now has her own speech and language occupational therapy center called Word Therapy Center in Lakewood Ranch, Florida. Welcome, Miss Nicole. We're so
That was a
honored
mouthful.
and excited to have you here.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, Miss Nicole, please tell us what you want to share with our families today.
Awesome. So today I just thought I would bring to you some of the tools and tricks that you can use at home in order to facilitate and develop good language at home for your little ones. And I think what I most have seen as we've opened up the doors here in Lakewood Ranch is that I have a lot of parents who are concerned about the development of their children, and I'm working on children. We do peds here, so birth to 18 we see here. And I think the most important thing that I can give to your parents today is just to kind of let them know when is it time to seek out a professional for your little one, and then talk about 5 things. So today I'm going to talk about 5 things that you can do at home just to facilitate good language and kind of provide that good structured language models at home.
Thank you so much. As a matter of fact, Miss Nicole also evaluated my daughter, and it was a very thorough process. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot. So she is definitely an expert in the field. And just a little side note for the fun of our audience, I actually got saved in her dad's church 27 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
That's crazy. Well, that's a blessing. Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of is a good segue to talk about what word therapy is all about, because we even started the name of our company, Word Therapy, based upon Romans 10:8, Jesus is the word. And we believe that our mandate is to help little ones get back their words through Jesus. So we believe that he's the one giving them their words. And we make a confession for those who come to us who are actually believers as well. And we do have quite a lot. Some don't, that's okay. We don't actually force that on anyone, but if they are believers, we will make a confession, and it is, the word is near me, which is Romans 10:8. The word is near me in my mouth and in my heart. Jesus is the word, and he's giving me my words. And we make that confession as they come in for therapy sessions. So amazing. So just that foundation of, everything starts with that. Everything begins with that.
So do you want to share with us these 5?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought what I just first address is, when is it time to actually seek out a professional? So I'm a speech language pathologist. Speech language pathologist, first of all, just to kind of provide a little bit of background there. We work on development of speech and language and communication as a whole, so that the whole communicator. So we do things with children who might have issues with learning speech and putting words together and understanding how to follow directions. That's the language part of it. We work with children who have issues with speech sounds. So can they say their S's correctly, their R's correctly? Is it wabbit instead of rabbit? Is it Sam instead of Sam? Or are we mixing up our words? Is it tat instead of cat? And then we also work with people who have voice issues. That's not necessarily my forte, it's not what my expertise is, but we do, as speech pathologists, work with that. We work with children and adults who might have stuttering issues, so fluency. Are we repeating sounds and things like that? So, and also there's a feeding component as well. And we work with children with autism and pragmatics and social skills. So there's a huge umbrella of what we do, and we're working with things. And today, I just want to kind of address a tiny portion of it where when is it important for a parent to understand that it's time to contact a speech pathologist? So, and this is for those little ones, new parents, maybe you don't have other siblings to kind of compare them to. And I see a lot of calls coming in with new parents. You're like, I think I have a problem. Houston, we might have a problem. And what we do is usually call them in and just do a free consultation. Where are the red flags? So first of all, I'm going to actually provide you guys some links. So, Miss Marion, I'm going to send some links for you to provide maybe under your under the podcast, maybe, or we can give them some links through that so they can look at what developmental norms are. And CDC gives a really great opportunity for parents to look at not just read, but actually see video clippings of children doing things that are developmentally appropriate for every age. And so it's really good if you're visual like me. I like to see it. And so they have those wonderful video clips. You can go into the age of your child and see, hey, are they doing this the right way? Are they doing things as they should? If your child is usually, I give the rule of thumb is by the age of 1, are they using single words? By the age of 2, are they using 2 words? By the age of 3, at least 3 words. And typically it's way more than that, but at least pulling 3 words together. If your child is 1 and they're not using single words, or if they're about 6 months to about 10 months, about 6 months is where we should be starting to babble. So we're doing things like ma, 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 ba, 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 pa, pa, pa. If about 10 months down the road, we're still not babbling, still not pulling sounds together, still not imitating, then maybe you need to contact a speech pathologist. The first thing is I'm going to get out my little speech baggie and we're going to talk about 5 things we need to do to make sure that we can help foster good development of language in our homes. Number 1 is don't throw in the white towel. So I've seen this a million times. Parents are calling me and they say, you know what? My child grabs my hand. They will point, they will scream and holler, and they have to go through almost everything in the fridge or everything in their drawers or everything in the pantry. Just, do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want this? Until we finally get a calm child that says that, maybe gestures or grabs for the item, no words, nonverbal. And there is this tendency that after you've gone through said 20 items, right? And I understand the frustration there, that you just want to give it directly to that child because you are tired of hearing the screaming and crying. And I know because I have 4 kids how that is, you just want it to stop. You just want them to be okay. But if we throw in the towel, if we give up and don't allow them an opportunity to make a communicative attempt, even if it's an attempt, then we've wasted that moment. So instead of throwing in the towel and just giving up and giving it to them, I want you to make just make an effort right there to have them repeat by either saying it. If they have some words and they're capable of repeating, then we're going to try to say, let's say the word is apple. Okay, so then we're going to put our finger on our chin. We're going to get into that child's face and make sure they can see us and say, apple. Did you see the way I did that? I really over enunciated because we really want them to look and take cues from our mouths. And most of the time we're giving those models and cues and the child's got their back turned or they're busy doing other things and they're not really cued in. So to get their attention, we maybe need to get down into their space, putting our finger on our chin and over enunciating apple. If they don't have words, then we can do the sign. And I can give the link for those baby signs or for the ASL as well. Apple or eat. Yes. And then if they don't follow through, they're like, I don't know what you want me to do. Take their hand to their mouth, eat, and say eat or apple. And then we hand the item because that way we've just established a new neural pathway for them. We're saying, hey, if I do this, apple, then I get apple. And so instead of just saying, I can scream and cry and get what I need, because we're reinforcing that behavior. So that's number one. And number two is don't use super long sentences. So here I have kind of like a visual. I'm super visual, you guys. I'm always using visuals. All right. So here's my example for my parents. So let's say we've got said child and we're just at single words, or we're just beginning to learn single words. We don't want to say to that child, hey, look at the big doggy. He's running over there and he's big and black. That's way too much for that child to imitate. They're never going to imitate that long sentence. So we've got to keep it short. Big dog, dog, black dog. So 1 to 2 words, giving them what they can actually feasibly model will help them out and help you to model what's correct for them and help them to give them something they can actually imitate. So that's number two. Okay, number three, talk about everything. So as you're there and you're at the table and you're sitting around dinner, you're like, oh, I have potatoes. Oh, look, mommy has potatoes. Daddy has potatoes. Oh, do you have potatoes? Oh, yummy. It's green beans. Oh, they're crunchy. Well, not really crunchy, they're soft. Right. So you're going to start talking about everything. You're in the car, you're driving. Oh, wow, look, I see red, a red light. Oh, red means stop, stop. I would be in the car with my kids and I'd make them every time they saw it. Well, we'd be talking about it so much that every time we saw a red light, my kids would say, stop, red, stop. Green, go. And they tell me when to go in the car. And it became a real big game for them as they were just beginning to learn single words. And so talking about everything, that's number three. Number four, read with your kiddos. I can't tell you how important it is to pull out good books, because this is important in so many ways, not just to be able to lay the foundation for pre-literacy skills and understanding how, even to understand, hey, that's the spine of the book, and oh, I have to open a book up this way, and they're words, and those words mean something. And oh, wait, let's see, I love interactive books, especially for younger kids. A lot of parents come to me, they're like, my kid does not like to read. And I'm like, well, what kind of books are we reading with them? For the younger kids, if we've got books that kind of, for even super young children, we've got books that look like this with a lot of text. Even with the bright pictures, some of them might get into it, but if you've got a really young child, more often than not, you're better at getting a book that they can actually feel, touch, hear, even smell. I've got those little books that have the smelly stickers in there and with much larger text in there that they can look at and things that they can actually feel, and we can talk about it. Oh, this is bumpy. Oh, is that soft? It's soft like your hair. Feel your hair. Is that soft? Ooh, that's smooth. Let's think of something else smooth. Oh, mommy's jacket is smooth too. Smooth. And so again, you want them to experience the book while you're reading the book, and that makes it more interactive and something that they'll definitely learn from and engage with better. Okay, the last thing I'm going to say for number 5 is celebrate. Okay, we've got to celebrate those big moments. And even if it's the smallest victory, even if after the whole day, yes, there was some frustration, we didn't get enough words, but for the first time that day, that child actually did apple instead of cried when they asked for apple. That's a huge victory. So we want to celebrate the small stuff. I always say small bites equal a big chew. So you just keep going at it. And it doesn't mean you have to do it all day, but I always tell my parents, set aside at least a good 10-minute span of time to sit and actually play. That doesn't mean like no tech. No, Miss Rachel, or songs like that. No YouTube. No, get out some toys, play and run a car down the ramp, or get a dolly out and feed the dolly and comb her hair and pretend she's eating. Play is so essential, and I think it's a lost art, actually, unfortunately, right now. So play, 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 and that's the last thing I'll say is the five main things to help us develop speech and language at home.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think throwing in the towel is, whew, that's a golden nugget to have in your back pocket because that's something that I struggled with is first of all, I'm not a speech and language pathologist, so I didn't even think about words and the importance of them saying it. And I remember you telling me one time, Marian, make sure you're asking open-ended questions, open-ended questions. So to get, your kids to talk. And it's not something I even thought about. I thought a yes and no was okay. And until I had one kid who was like hardly talking, and I was like, what's happening? And so I guess one question would be for you, Nicole. What do you do, or at what point should parents be concerned, like within that um, first, like let's say 6 to 12 months, if they're noticing a babbling, but they're noticing words that aren't formed yet, or they're not making that mom and dad, those words, what do you do?
Right. So again, so the normal progression of things is that we start off with babbling, ba 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 ba. Then we put a rhythm to it because we begin to understand there's prosody, there's a way that it sounds. Ba 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 ba. It sounds like I said something, right? I have the flow of it. It sounds right. I just don't have the correct words to plug into those little components, right? Those little boxes there. And so they began to move from jargon. So that's what that is. It's like, it sounds like it, to single words. And then from there, they're using those single words, they're gaining vocabulary. There is a huge like growth spurt in vocabulary between that 12-month to that 2 3 year span. It's exponential. And so as they're learning and growing and getting that vocabulary, the most important thing in that span is to give them vocabulary, talk about everything, have them to identify. So here, look in this book, I've got, oh, what is that? That's a cow. Oh, you know what? And here's an even better idea. Hold on, let me see. I've got a nice vocabulary book here, first words. So if you don't have like a first words book, oh, look, these things are all red. Where's the strawberry, Susie? And Susie has to find the strawberries and point to them first. So the first thing that we develop is understanding and comprehending and having that receptive vocabulary. Then we get the expressive vocabulary as well. So we want to see, do we understand? Do we know what an orange is? Do we know what an apple is? A truck, a dog, a car? Do we know those kind of basic things? And then from there, are we actually beginning to say some of those words? So we're trying to see, can they imitate? That's another thing that's really important, because half the time I've got children coming into me and they're not imitating, and that's part of the issue. So we want to do things like play funny games in the mirror where we're actually making faces and saying, woo, and making environmental noises like woof, 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 and brr for the car and moo for the cow. We want to start off with those types of things so that they can imitate and make it fun. As we're doing it, even put some whipped cream on the mirror and we're saying, ba, 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 or bubbles, we got the bubbles and we're blowing the bubbles. And, let's see if I can think of something else that we could do besides playing in the mirror and making those things. Oh, bubbles definitely is a big deal. So we can definitely blow the bubbles. And again, you're going to talk about everything you're doing. So seeing if they will imitate, not just that, but imitate funny faces with you in the mirror, oral posture. So imitation is key there. If you're not seeing your child imitate, if you're not seeing your child use, again, those single words, if they're not babbling, by the age of like 6 months over to even like 10 months of age, then we probably need to at least consult with a speech pathologist. And I know in our office, we allow patients to come in for free consultation. So they come in with us, we check them out, play a little bit, and then we talk about next steps. Yeah, I think we need to do an evaluation. Most of the time, I'll have to say that I know that my parents are the pros on their kids. They're the experts on their children. And I want to say pretty much about 80, 90% of the time when a parent calls me and says they're concerned, they are legitimate concerns. They definitely come into me and I'm like, you're right. We need to work on something. We can do it. We can help. So you are the pro on your child. So always remember that as a parent, if mama, if you've got that gut feeling, because I think that supernatural inclination that something is going on. God just gave us that as moms. And that gut feeling, that little mommy check, if that's going on with you for your child, then I would say that that's probably telltale. You need to go in and consult with a speech pathologist.
That's great. So then let me ask you something else. Um, what if a parent has a language concern by the age of, let's say, maybe 3? Let's say the kids are talking, but it's really, really difficult to make out what the kids are saying. Um, is that a red flag, or is that something that can still be developed? And how would you
It
go about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, a lot of times, usually by the age of 3, we get children coming in, and mom and dad are saying, you know what? They've got a lot of words, but I'm not understanding everything they're saying. In fact, I'm missing a lot of it. And I'm the one who's the pro on this child, and I'm missing what they're saying. Typically, those children don't have a language issue. They're going to fall up under a different segment of our umbrella, which is the speech and how they're producing those speech sounds. Which will definitely affect their understandability in connected speech. In other words, when they're pulling words together, it affects how they're being understood by people who are familiar listeners, so like mom, dad, sister, brother, immediate family, versus those people who are unfamiliar listeners, like a teacher who's in the daycare, or maybe grandma or grandpa who don't really spend a lot of time with them personally. So a lot of times that is a red flag, and they need to bring them in so that we can do a screening and check out those speech sounds. So again, that kind of goes back to I'm saying tan instead of can, or I'm dropping off speech sounds like in blends, so poon instead of spoon. Those are what we call phonological processes. And not all the time do we have a child presenting with phonological process disorder, but if they're highly unintelligible, so if we really don't understand what they're saying, a lot of the times it will end up being a phonological process disorder versus an articulation disorder, which is just, we're just substituting speech sounds here and there, like wamp instead of lamp, or sometimes they may have a frontal S, like that, soap instead of soap. But phonological process disorder is where it's a rule-based thing that we all do as we're developing speech sounds up until about the age of 3. And that's why around the age of 3, we start getting those calls. Okay, I'm not understanding little Tommy. Help us out. Is there an issue? Most of the time, there usually is. So up to about the age of 3, we do these things where we're bringing the tongue to the front instead of to the back. So instead of saying, car, where the tongue comes to the back, we'll bring the tongue to the front, tar. I use things like visual phonics to help children to know the difference. So looks like this, looks like that. So when they say, you know what, I said tar. I said, yeah, I heard tar. I want you to say car. They have to see the difference because half the time the children do not really discern that they're saying it incorrectly. So we use a lot of strategies here to kind of help out with that, and we get great results. But that's a good question. It's true. Usually it's a speech issue.
Well, no wonder your kids are also have such a high vocabulary and have always been such good speakers. Oh
They
my
were my
goodness.
guinea pigs, right?
Because they have a mama at home that really, really understands this. And even though I work with children, my expertise is in secondary education. So, middle and high school, we're not taught about any of this. So, I'm wondering, Nicole, I do have one last question for you. So, let's say kids are school aged, and let's say they don't have a great speech pathology clinic near them, like yours is in Lakewood. Could they request, do you suggest they go through the school, or what do you suggest there?
So I was in the schools for many years, provide school services, and I know the world of school and I know the world of private practice. And I'll have to say that the better model for individualized therapy that is catered to that individual child is going to be the practice. But I understand also the needs of that child and scheduling and things like that, and the fact that if it's available in the schools, you will get it. So the difference between a private practice model and a school model is that in private practice, we're able to actually provide that individualized care because we're doing individual sessions. In the school, they're going to get a group session, and so they will get that therapy, but they'll get it in the group. And so if you can imagine that you're sitting at the table with maybe 3 or 4 other children, and then we're working on the speech sounds. I'm not saying that you can't make gains. You certainly can. And I saw many gains, and I graduated many children in my time and career as a speech pathologist working in the schools. But I just feel like I get exponential growth and a lot more gains with the individual. And of course, it's a better model. But if they need, definitely they should bring it to the school pathologist, speech pathologist attention. You should bring it to your SAT team. I don't know if they call it SAT in every single state, but there should be a team and a body by which in the school they can present those types of concerns to, so that they can begin to pursue an evaluation. So the process, typically, whether it's private or school, is that first you identify the problem. Most of the time they'll ask you to do a screening. And then secondly, then based upon the results of that screening, whether they feel they should pursue further evaluation, they'll make that next step to do an evaluation. If you're in the schools, it'll go through something like a SAT team, where it's a group of individuals or professionals who can go through, look at the entire child, what they're doing in the classroom. And of course, in the schools, you have to demonstrate that you have some instructional impact. So is the problem impacting them in their education? It's called educational impact. And so that's idea law. But if you're demonstrating that type of impact, in other words, can you have issues with spelling because of your speech? Yes, you can. And that you can demonstrate educational impact, which would justify you doing the evaluation. Are you not confident in responding inside the classroom with your peers because you have a speech issue? Now that demonstrates educational impact, and then we can move forward with the evaluation. So those types of things are what they're going to be looking for in the educational realm versus in the private, where we're just, okay, do we have an issue? Let's tackle it. So that's what we would be doing. And I would say to parents, yes, if your child is struggling, if you're seeing telltale red flag frustration from your child because of the way that they're speaking or because they're having some issues communicating, that we don't want to lag or wait. I wouldn't lag or wait to address that with either a school speech pathologist or a private, because we want to diminish that frustration level, and frustration level is going to ultimately affect their confidence level, and that we don't want. So that's a red flag just to keep in mind as you're considering those things.
Yes, and I actually live that because my child that you evaluated, I ended up seeing those issues in first grade, is where she wasn't able to phonetically write out the correct sound because she was mispronouncing it. And so, but she was by then, I want to say when she was in preschool, I had already requested a speech and language screener. And so she qualified. I want to say first grade, third grade, she didn't qualify. Kindergarten, she didn't, but by first grade, she qualified and she was in speech and language, and it made all the difference. They helped her with her R's, and then we found out that she's dyslexic, and so that was we're like, oh, that's what happened. But I'm thankful that I had people like you and other educators, because you're not here with me, unfortunately, in Colorado, because you're in Florida. And so I had to utilize the schools, and it was I'm glad I advocated for her because she got the early intervention she needed to be successful. So let me ask you something. Is early intervention crucial?
Oh my goodness, studies show that the earlier that we tackle these issues, the better the prognosis in the long run. So if you are beginning to feel that little unction, that little, oh, uh-oh, you've got a little uh-oh red flag in here, I would say it is just jump on it. Whether you think that there's a major problem or not, just get it checked out just to make sure. Because the earlier we start, the better the prognosis. In other words, the better their journey is to get to the end goal for that child, the earlier we begin in addressing those issues and concerns.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Early intervention is everything, even in education. Like the earlier they know how to read accurately and write accurately. I mean, of course, developmentally appropriate, but still, um, yeah, that's great.
It just things just become more compounded. And as we get older, the demands become more intensive and exhaustive. And so if we've got growth that is lagged, or if we've got any delay in that development, then as we are, developing as a child and getting into those, especially the academic arena, where we're moving from BICS, basic interpersonal communication, to now CAL, which is more academic in nature. If we've got issue with just the basic interpersonal communication, and then we're moving into an academic where there are more demands, and we've got a lot more information coming at us, and we've got to dissect that in a different way, in a more complex way, where we're doing some more metacognitive things, then we haven't laid the proper foundation. If we think about it as a child's developing, it's kind of like building a house, and we want to lay that proper foundation and lay the right walls and make sure that it's on solid ground and there's nothing shifting, so we don't have what we call splintered skills, where we end up with, okay, we've got a house here, but we got half a wall, and the door is up here on the roof instead of on the front, and we've got some things that we just got to work out and fix. So the sooner you start working on that and build a good solid foundation, the better for that child.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else you want to just share, or that maybe you missed so far, or is there anything else you want to talk about before we head out? Or
No, I think we were that's a great conversation, great discussion. Thanks for the opportunity to just be able to come and share with your families. And I don't know if there's anyone ever going to address this in Florida, but if you're in the Florida area, you can find word therapy here in the Lakewood Ranch area, which is Sarasota, Bradenton, and Lakewood Ranch areas. And we actually even service people down to Venice. We've got people coming to us from Lake Placid and up in Tampa and from all over, basically. They'll come to us because we get good results. So if you're in the area and you need some help, feel free to reach us at Word Therapy. You can find us online, www.wordtherapycenters.com. And thank you. Thank you again so much for having me.
absolutely. Before we head out, this reminds me, doesn't your website also have a blog with some parenting tips?
It does, actually. You'll find some of these tips that I shared with you today on that blog.
Nice. Okay, so we'll make sure to visit that website. And Miss Nicole, you also have a new book coming out, right? You are working on a book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
I'm working on a book right now to kind of help parents who are in the same boat that we were just talking about, with a child who needs language development, but we just don't know where to start. And so working on how to provide the proper cues and models. A lot of the information we kind of shared with you today is going to be in the context of that text. So yeah, hopefully we'll have that out soon. Working on it. It's a
Great.
work in progress.
Well, keep us posted because I'm eager to read it. Not everybody has a golden coin in their pocket like I do by being, having you in my life. Like I'm so grateful for you. And it's definitely, if you're not from that speech language arena, it's hard to even wrap your head around some of these concepts.
Yeah, I understand. I'm
So
thankful to
thank
God, yeah, for
thank you
that.
for helping us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Please stay tuned for the next episode, which will air in 2 weeks.